Welcome back to the Girls Frontline Backstory series. We will be continuing the explanation of the backstory of Girls Frontline, starting from 1950 and going to 1992. We continue 5 years later in 1950, when the Soviets began the construction and activation of its Starfish installations, most notably the Tabasar B Proving Grounds. The closest parallel to our timeline that Starfish has was the Starfish Prime, a nuclear test at Johnston Atoll located near the state of Hawaii by the Americans on the 9th of July, 1962. The purpose of Starfish Prime was to test whether nuclear weapons and explosions in low Earth orbit could change and expand the Van Allen radiation belts to create a barrier that would incapacitate Soviet ICBMs launched against the United States. However, the alternative timeline Starfish was neither a weapon or a device. Rather, it was a simulated production system that was replicated from the Relic and data from Blake Road, with its first effective product being produced in 1961. In 1955, the United States began Relic research after their first contact of a relic on the shores of Lake Vostok in Antarctica, 1.1 kilometers from the American McMurdo Antarctic Surveillance Station. This relic, found by the United States, was later designated as DOR, or D1, and was brought back to the mainland United States, where it assisted Lockheed Martin and Skunk Works in the creation of multiple stealth jet planes after reverse engineering the relic. Between 1950 and 1980, 4 relics were discovered by the United States. D1, as mentioned before, D2 at Los Alamos, New Mexico, D9 in Warren, Wyoming, and D51 in the Lake Central region of California. At the same time, the United States also founded Big Sieve, an organization dedicated to tactical relic research. When D2 was discovered at Los Alamos in New Mexico, Big Sieve worked together with the United States Army to hide a research institute in Redstone Arsenal, Alabama. With the launch of Sputnik by the Soviet Union on the 4th of October 1957, the space race officially began. Due to the launch of Sputnik, the United States rethought its technological strategy as the Soviet Union was able to concentrate its strength for larger projects, which caused the United States to take back its military research core from universities and corporations. Big Sieve slowly evolved from a research and military organization to a purely governmental one, with the organization now assuming the role of discovering and protecting friendly relics while scouting and destroying hostile ones. Relic research now fell upon a newly founded organization named ARPA, Advanced Research Projects Agency, which was proposed by President Eisenhower and approved by Congress the same day, receiving $5.2 million in startup funds by the 5th day and $200 million when it was fully founded in 1958. ARPA was given 3 missions by the United States government, which were: 1. Ensure the technological lead of the United States. 2. Apply the most advanced technologies in military fields. And 3. Prevent hidden foes from overtaking them by surprise in technological dominance. No delays were allowed within ARPA, as any time frame for a project was to be followed. If the project was not completed in the allotted time, it would be handed over and restarted by another team. Any and all measures would be accepted by the United States in the name of Relic research. We jumped forward in time again to 1961, with the Starfish facility at Tabasar B finally producing its first product, after the consumption of countless resources. The Soviets named these products Servators, which were displayed during the October Revolution Parade of November 1961, at the request of General Secretary Khrushchev after the Vienna Summit in June, the construction of the Berlin Wall in August, and nuclear tests being made illegal once again. 1962 now brings the attention to an island that is mentioned many times throughout the backstory, Bailyn Island. The Chinese communists discover a corpse of an unknown life form, believed to be a member of the unknown civilization, and was speculated to be a guardian of the relic found at Bailyn, and was therefore called Gavarol, with its Chinese scientific name being Zhongwang, or officer. The relic found at Bailyn Island was sealed away after Gavarol was taken into storage, both being deemed to have no further research value, and was locked 67 meters underground, being forgotten for about 30 years. The Cuban Missile Crisis happens later on in this year, with an agreement between the Soviets and Americans being reached on the conditions that the missiles were removed from both Turkey and Cuba. We jump in time again to the Prime Minister of East Germany, Otto Grothwall, launching a secret investigation to the site of the first relic of Bleikrode in 1963. The operation was conducted by the secret police of East Germany, the Stasi, and led by Markus Wolf, the head of the main Directorate for Reconnaissance, the Foreign Intelligence Division of the Stasi. Though Wolf knew little about relics, he still diligently conducted a thorough explanation of a 7-story hollow left in Nordhausen Cave by the extraction of the first relic, finding sets of triple grooves at regular intervals in the walls. 2 years later in 1965, Wolf discussed the relics with his friend Alexander Sarkovsky, the first chief directorate of the KGB. Sarkovsky revealed to Wolf that the 16th Directorate, a division of the KGB that focused on electronic warfare, was looking into ternary computers, prompting Wolf to send a team of electrical engineers and computer scientists to test if the grooves left by the first relic were connectors. On the 19th of December 1965, the relic produced feedback electromagnetic signals in response to electrical signals in the grooves. The Leipzig University was tasked with the analyzation and decryption of these signals. Wolf officially renamed the Relic Electronic Surveillance Center and its team to 90 Wish in English. 1968 marked the height of the Vietnam War. The first Relic weapons experiment was conducted at the D9 Relic site, where a gas was located and samples were attempted to be extracted. It was found that the gas was not able to be physically liquefied unless it came into contact with organic matter, where it would react by eating away at the organic matter before returning to the gaseous state. The gas was later tested on a human subject, where it was found that the gas fed on the flesh of the subject, with the flesh seemingly peeling off. The United States was able to recover roughly 130 tons of the gas, with smaller quantities being used for research and experimental purposes, and the bulk being stored below D9. President Lyndon B. Johnson ordered the movement and deployment of 3 canisters, roughly 3 tons of gas, to an aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Tonkin, which was to be utilized during the Vietnam War. ARPA labeled the gas as an accelerant for the sake of keeping its true purpose a secret, with the gas supposedly being dropped from a squadron of modified F-4s named Thundercats. The Thundercats answered directly to Big Sieve. All 3 tons of gas is guessed to be used during the war, as the recovery manifest does not mention the canisters. On the other side of the globe in 1971, the Soviets received good news from their Tabasar B starfish facility. The production team managed to generate a stabilized version of the Servitors, with the realization of what the Servitors were. The leader of the production team, M.J. Cerveza, said about the Servitors, "Rather than a life form, they're more like kind of a mechanical device. Our simulated production system at Tabasar B can quote-unquote replicate a quote-unquote growth pool. Similar to this, the theory proposed by Professor Romanovsky of Lomonosov State University of Moscow is workable. The Servitors can be controlled, but Tabasar B could only produce 4 to 6 units per year, as the Soviets had a lack of understanding in the production process and the technology involved. These new Servitors were named Pikes." Up to this point, the Soviets had discovered 5 relic sites on their soil: OKB 456 at Siberia's Yamsk 11, OKB 37 in Ukraine, OKB 10 under the Arctic polar ice cap, OKB 88 at the Soviet rocket launch and development site near Kapsutin Yar, and OKB 11 at Idarup Island, with OKB 10 and OKB 456 being estimated to be over 100 square kilometers. OKB 10 is the focus of these relic sites, as on the 12th of May 1973, the site lost contact with Lomonosov University and the KGB's 16th Directorate. The North Fleet Marines were deployed into OKB-10 to conduct a search and rescue mission, where they clashed with an unknown enemy and were believed to have gained control over the situation before showing signs of biological degradation and losing control again. The unit deployed by the Soviets was equipped with Class 3 anti-biochemical gear, which allowed them to survive for over an hour in a biologically or chemically contaminated environment, but upon entering the relic site, the life expectancy shrank to less than 20 minutes. Jumping 3 years into the future to 1976, the first documented case of Urosky low-emission infectious disease, abbreviated to ELID, happens. The one afflicted with ELID is one Gorman Wayland, a US Army Green Beret technical specialist, who at the time worked for Big Sieve, and had just finished conducting the 7th Man mission in the Lady Liberty experiments at Relic Site D1. Having participated in 3 prior Lady Liberty experiments, no abnormalities were detected after the previous 2 missions. But during Gorman's physical checkup at the end of the 3rd, severe abnormalities were found. Gorman's body proteins were being digested. Molecular linkages between said proteins were damaged, and the connective tissues throughout the body were breaking down. His body was aging at an abnormal rate, accompanied by signs of muscular weakness, low blood oxygen carrying capacity, and red blood cell count, along with the calcification and hardening of his bones. At the time, Gorman's condition was treated as radiation sickness, with Gorman dying 61 hours after the end of the experiment and his bone hardness being close to 400 on the Brino hardness scale, being harder than steel. At a later perspective, Gorman was found to be a Type A ELID infectee. The longer someone remains in contact with relics, the longer the onset period. The conversion begins within 24 to 48 hours, with the connective tissues breaking down and the amino acids decomposing. However, Gorman was one of the lucky infectees, as he did not endure the DNA chain recombination stage because of his physical condition. This is where the timelines of Girls Frontline and our own seem to violently diverge, as in 1980 there was an estimated 150,000 ELID infectees worldwide, with close to 10,000 being successfully converted to ELID infected, a sort of zombie. Neither NATO nor the Eastern Bloc had any successful experiences in suppressing ELIDs due to the differences in each individual sickness. The statistical data collected from combat with the infected was essentially useless. Both organizations created elite units designed to combat the ELID infected, but mortality was high due to the lack of technology and experience. Worse still, due to a lack of understanding ELID infection vectors, ELID could not be treated or prevented due to the technology of the time. Once someone was infected, the infectees were guaranteed to die. This lasted until 1983, when the United States and the Soviets began researching anti-ELID vaccines, where it was gradually relieved. The powers of the relics became irresistible to some. The Soviets caved to this temptation, as they employed, for the first time in their combat, relic weaponry, one of their servitors. The first use of the servitor was in a small Afghani mountain village, and was once the home of a Mujahideen leader in 1981. The servitor left a trail from its deployment point and spread out to about 4 meters before ending somewhere down the mountain. The entire population and destruction of the village was concluded within 1 hour and 23 minutes. No survivors were found, only the bones that not even the vultures wanted to pick at. The Soviets later activated the servitors in the Khyber Pass. According to research and simulations done by NATO Command, NATO armored units would not have been able to resist the destructive power of an activated servitor. As 1981 progressed, ELID cases began rising rapidly, and a cure for the disease was still out of reach. This caused the United States and Soviets a great deal of concern, with both parties hosting secret bilateral talks that were mediated by the Vatican and World Health Organization. The United States and the Soviets exchanged information on the relics, the problems concerning them, and reached an accord on the spread of ELID. On the 3rd of November, 1981, the United States and USSR signed the Dresden Treaty, declaring a halt to all relic research and military development of relic weaponry, with a grace period being given to dismantle currently deployed relic weapons. This treaty would later be expanded in 1991, becoming the Dresden Convention, which would later be fundamental towards the attitudes of relics in the upcoming years. On the 1st of December 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved, forming the Russian Federation in its wake. A year later, in 1992, the United Nations formed the Relic Science Agency and restarted the research into Gavarol after much political conflict. The restarting of Gavarol research brought a new research project onto the table. This project was named the, quote, Black Lily and White Rose Project. The purpose of this project was to create a humanized embryo from Gavarol in order to use them as a bridge to understand the dangers of the unknown civilization. Due to the unstable nature of the genes, the viability of the embryos was extremely low, around a 98.9% mortality rate. In the end, only 2 subjects survived. In order to ensure chromosomal completeness, all embryos were female, and due to the differences in egg cells used, the 2 surviving examples were different in appearance, appearing as a Caucasoid and a Mongoloid respectively. They were designated Observation Subject G37, Caucasian, and G114, Mongolian. Due to a genetic deficiency in G37's hair, it turned white, while G114's had normal black hair. Apart from that, G37 and G114 were no different from normal human beings during their infancy. Given these special phenomena, the Research Institute named the observation project the Black Lily and White Rose Project, with the twin sisters being named Lily and Rose. The twins grew quickly due to their metabolic processes being much faster than a regular human being. At age 7, they appeared to be 14. According to various tests performed in the 15th year of the project, Lily and Rose did not display any particularly unusual characteristics beyond a somewhat heightened muscular strength and prefrontal cortex activity. Tests to see if they could affect the relics produced no reactions on any material level, and after 20 years of observation, the Gavril reproduction project was deemed a fundamental failure. No one knows what happened to Lily or Rose. The next video will cover the events of the backstory from 2012 to 2062, with more relevant developments to Girls Frontline happening in the 50-year span.